Okay, I'm reading from Lifting the Veil by Malcolm Guite. I mentioned it in yesterday's podcast, and I am going to read from the introduction. And I need my trusty little glasses here. In our compartmentalized, privatized, individualized, and divided world, the arts have been relegated to something purely subjective, a matter of individual taste, a decorative version of what's true for me, a private aesthetic thrill to compensate for the grimness of what is actually out there, something to numb the mind as it faces the brutality of day to day living. Such is the view today, and it is the exact opposite of how the arts and artists were once seen and could be seen again. If you've never heard of this book, I highly, highly recommend it. Excellent book. Excellent. Again, his name is Malcolm Guite, and he has a YouTube channel. I will put that down in the description below. He is so fun. Oh my goodness. If there is one person in this world that I want to meet and it would be him, because he's like totally this grandfatherly, if you think of what an English poet would be like, that you just would paint a picture without even seeing him. You would paint a picture of Malcolm Guite, literally. He's got his pipe, he's got his bourbon, he's got his library with super old overstuffed chairs that the stuffing's been flattened over the years, and there's so many books on the shelves, they're just falling off, and there's papers everywhere. And he's got the beard, and he's puffing on his pipe, and he's reading from Tolkien and Lewis and Coleridge and Wordsworth and all of those amazing people, and you just want to sit and you just want to listen to him tell stories. He likes to write Arthurian works. He writes them and he reads them, and I just want to sit and listen to him for like hours and hours and hours. And I want to smell his pipe. I haven't smelled a pipe in a long time. My great grandfather used to smoke a pipe, and he passed away when I was probably around 10, 11, somewhere around there. But when we would go visit him, he had his old chair. It was his. And then he had this little side table that had a couple tiers on it. I've seen similar ones at like antique stores. And then he had his pipe and his tobacco sitting there, and he'd sit there. And he was a very little man, and which our whole family pretty much is very little. I'm only 5 feet tall, and he probably wasn't much taller than that. But ironically, my great grandmother, his wife, she was 6 foot, and she was a towering, imposing figure. I was actually afraid of great grandma, and she was, in our house, we grew up, my dad was a pastor, very conservative and strict home, but great grandma was always walking around going, damn it, hell, so my sister and I were like, and she had her cigarette, and grandpa was a coal miner in Wyoming, in Rawlins, Wyoming. My great grandfather was a coal miner, and he lived in a little coal miner's house. It was literally a square, and there was a bunch of these white houses. They were just white squares on a desert floor, literally, and in his backyard was the coal mine. And it was shut down at the time I was around. So, but we would go there, and you'd go, and it was hideous. The area is right next to Rock Springs, Wyoming, where I mentioned in a previous podcast, when I was talking about heritage homes. My grandparents' home was there, and I loved my grandparents. I loved that home. I hated where it was. There is nothing out there. I've never seen the Sahara Desert, but that's what I imagine it would look like. It's just, there's no vegetation, no trees. It's just dirt, white dirt and red dirt, and there's nothing, and it's just dry and barren. And so in Rawlins, even more so. And so his little square house, which it was tiny. Most of our Their house could probably fit into their entire house, 4 room, and it was in a square, and it was just 4 rooms, but 1 bedroom, and then you had the living room, and then you had the kitchen and a little space for a dining room, and then you had the washroom and whatnot, and it was just a square. And then on the very back was a mudroom, and you'd walk outside and you could see the mine out there. And but it could probably fit in most people's kitchen and maybe kitchen living room. I mean, it was tiny. But they lived there their whole life, and, he'd sit there with his pipe, and he'd rock back and forth. He said hardly anything, and my sister and I would sit on the floor in front of his rocker and just watch him, and I know he spoke, but I don't remember him speaking, except for maybe a few words here and there. Um, he would, um he didn't always have his teeth in, so sometimes, his chin was way up because his teeth were out, but he'd sit and he'd smoke, and he'd just rock back and forth, and he'd smile. And then great grandma did all the talking for him, her she's just cussing away and smoking away, and he's just puffing away, just rocking. And, but I I cherish that memory. I love that memory. So maybe that's why I really like Malcolm Guite. I mean, he's incredibly talented. His poetry, his books are insanely good. And, but he is one person that I would love to meet. Just go out there and, sit at his feet, sit in his library and listen to him read, Wind in the Willows, or read, when he reads, I just get pulled in. I hate reading these out loud in a sense because I can't read like other people can. Malcolm Guite and others, when they read, you're just like, you're just totally pulled in. That's the way he is. And I just appreciate the gifts and talents of other people. And that's been what's on my mind this morning. I was taking a walk this morning, and I was thinking, I I have a lot of gifts that God has given me, and he's teaching me and training me up in them, that I am not, on my own. I need other people. And in fact, one of my things that I'm praying for is, God, I need someone to help me market my business. That is not something that I'm good at. People have approached me for marketing in the past going, "Oh, you're so good at marketing." I'm like, "Really?" You know, I'm not. Trust me, I am not. I mean, I can help people nail down, and I used to coach people in nailing down their target audience. I can do that. But that I have this disconnect between taking, I can create amazing products and businesses, and I can make them beautiful, and I can make them excellent. Sorry, my dog is annoying. But, communicating with them is really hard for me. Um, and one example is really quick is I had a writing group that I created on Facebook for my typewriter business, and it was called Type Writers, writers in all caps. And it was supposed to be just for people who write on their typewriters. And that's what I put. I'm like, for people who write on their typewriters. And it didn't do anything for a few years, and then all of a sudden it exploded about 3 years ago, and which was great. I'm like, "Awesome." And so there's, like, almost 4,000 people on there, but I just didn't give it much attention. But I had a moderator. Her name is Morgan Andrews, and she had been there almost a year, and I knew that, and I mean, people participated, but not a lot, and there was a lot more declining posts because people were, like, wanting to know the value and where they could buy things, or how to repair, and I'm like, "That's not this group. This is not this group." But I never got the participation that I really wanted. But then again, I didn't give it hardly much thought either. But anyway, I offered to give it to Morgan, even though it was really a valuable asset. I just hadn't tapped into it, and I knew I didn't have the time or the skills to participate and manage and tap into it like I really wanted to. And I just gave it to Morgan because she had been faithful in working and moderating that group. And she's only had it a few weeks, and you know what? It's taken off, totally taken off. And the people that are participating and the posts that are coming up, I'm like, this is really good. This is what I was wanting. I couldn't get people to do it, but I also hadn't given it much attention. And And while I was seeing the individual posts, I decided to go over to the actual group page and see if there was anything I could see. And I noticed she had changed the cover, which she should have because it's now her group. And, mine was just, some fun typewriter pictures with typewriters, people who write on their typewriters, and that's all I had. But she understood the assignment. And you'll have to look it up. It's typewriters. Type is lowercase, writers is uppercase. And I don't know the exact words, but basically she changed the cover, had some really fun, colorful images, and then it was like for people who do scrapbooking, journaling, and I forgot what the other words she used, but she defined the writer. She defined the people that are using it. I couldn't think outside of just writer, like novel writer. You know, that's because I'm a writer. But she understood that she had to define the people who were using it, and she did, and all of a sudden, people are like, "Oh, yes, that's me." And so now she's got all these really creative posts. People are posting on there about all the creative things they're doing with their typewriter. And I'm like, "Wow, good for her." That's the kind of person I need in my business, and, um, I can't be everything, and that's okay. To an extent. I need I need that in my business. And so if somebody wants to come and, partner with me in my business and bring those things that I lack, that would be great. But it's just a reminder, this book and that story and um appreciating people's gifts, that somebody can read a quote and read a story and it's really fantastic. And then there's people like me, I read it, but I don't have that storytelling ability. And I don't have certain abilities, and that's okay. And I appreciate those who have the things that I don't have. So, my encouragement today is to go out, appreciate the gifts and talents that you have, share it with others, and then appreciate what others have to share with you and invite them into your life, into your business. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.